This is Bryan Seeley, famous cybersecurity expert and hacker. Please listen to Verbal Shenanigans, like and subscribe, and if you don't, I'll find you.
But our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Yeah, I mean, his shenanigans are cruel and tragic.
Which makes them not shenanigans at all, really. Evil shenanigans.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on back to the Verbal Shenanigans podcast. We are coming off a great one, Mike. Jojo Garza last week of Los Lonely Boys. And this is one of those episodes that, you know, weeks go by where you want to kill yourself trying to put things out there on the internet. And, you know, you get a like from, like, your dad or something like that, you know. You get a like from Mike. Like, there's times I put up stuff on our Instagram and it gets one like and it's from you. I'm like, God damn it, yeah. I can't even.
I'm like, I'll start it off.
Yeah, you'll get this.
Everybody was shy, but then they'll see Burlew likes and they're like, oh, I better find out what this is and like it myself.
Yeah, so this is one of those fun weeks that I could relate to a couple episodes in our past where it just like randomly in our world exploded. Got a ton of great feedback on the interview. I just checking the listens today, Mike. Got a big grouping in Texas listen to us this week.
Nice.
Yeah, so like when you see the little map, it's not just New Jersey and Georgia anymore. There was a good representation from Texas this week.
All right, let's talk about guns then. Let's keep them coming back.
Yeah. So where do you stand on abortion? I am totally against it, Mike.
Yeah, yes. All you ladies, it only comes out when the bread is done. You hear me?
I can't wait till our next female guest we're trying to get listens to that.
Got Aisha Ash back on.
But it was a great interview, and I knew it when we were doing it. I'm like, this is a really good interview. This guy's got just like great presence about him. His stories were good, and I could tell we were like connecting with them for once, you know, connecting with their guest. And we got a big surge of people watching the clips and commenting on it. So it was nice to see. It was this has happened with our friends the Fantwans before. This has happened when we interviewed Lamal, who sang Never Ending Story. We're just like getting all these comments in Europe, and then Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare, years ago. All of a sudden, everyone from Kenya was following our Facebook.
Yeah. We just got a large amount. We're like, oh, they're not even asking whether they can promote our podcast and all. It's just actual, yes, thank you for telling us about our fellow Nigerian here.
Yeah, so it was a good week in Verbal Shenanigans land here, so I'm a little pumped up here, Mike, and it's I've got good feelings going into this week, and I'm getting ready to crash back down to where we normally are.
Yeah, like we interviewed Jojo Garza, but usually when we put up our podcast, we are the Los Lonely Boys because we're the only ones that listen to it.
We are Los Lonely all the time.
Los Lonely Casters.
Well, we have a really interesting guest tonight too. So we're going to keep I got to say, our guests this year have been quite eclectic. We've had a good range, which is the norm. But usually, I always think about it in chunks. Like there's certain chunks. Like I'll go back and look at some of our stuff and be like, oh, that was a really good chunk of like 4 episodes where it was really different or really like big names.
Yeah. That our audience can tell when we're in a lull when we get like 4 musical guests in a row.
Yep.
Or it's like, well, I never heard this. It's like, yeah, we couldn't find anybody in the one like manager or whatever. It's like, yeah, here's everybody I have who's put out an album. Okay.
Even next week and the next 2 weeks and tonight are going to be some different things that we have not really touched up to date. And we have touched everything, no pun intended here, but we have.
Yeah, that's why I'm on a list.
Yeah, there is times where me and Mike just try to think of anything that we haven't talked to, and we still find stuff. We still find things, but then it leads down a road of having 5 slap fighters, you know, get back to us, and some of them ghosting us, trash talking us, you know, all different things.
Pornhubbing themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't one of our slap fighter guys like recently reach out for money or something like that?
Yeah. The one that ghosted us 6 times, and
Mhm.
where it pointed out that they had a Pornhub account where they just literally beat their meat. He just out of the blue sends an email. It's like, hey, I'm going through some tough times. I forget if he's like got like a crime against him or he just like can't pay his bills.
Yeah.
But it's just like a random, like he ignored me every single time I've emailed or texted him when it's like, hey, remember that 10th rescheduling of our interview? Are you coming to this one? And then replies 2 weeks later. But that one, right on the dot, I'm in with the full group of people that apparently talked to him. And it's like, yeah, slap fighting ain't easy, man. I need to pay the bills.
Yeah. So with that guests who've done porn and stuff like that, I wanted to bring up the topic I was going through today. Actually, I was thinking we did have another guest who's done porn before. Scott Schwartz from Christmas Story entered the adult world, but I'm not going to talk about just guests that did porn. But I was going through some old clips today to try to some old interviews. We just started really putting out more visual clips recently, and they've been working pretty well. So I want to go back to some of our classics, cut some pieces out and send things. And I'm clicking through Zoom files, and the first thing I land on, like literally the first one I open, some like late teenage. This sounds bad. Some young girl just pops up on the Zoom, like maybe 18, 19 years old, something like that. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out who that was. I had almost no recollection of it. And then I started kind of remember one time we had like a teenager, and then I text you a picture. I'm like, who the hell is this? You text me back. You're like, I don't know. Was it one of the...
Yeah.
Was it one
and
of
it's bad when
girls?
I keep guessing and he's like, no, that ain't the person.
You guessed one of the one of the dog sled racers, and then like this old singer who's been around for 40 years. So your range was pretty far.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is we don't get a lot of women on the show. So I'm like, all right, percentage wise, I have a great shot of hitting this right now.
So far, I'm going to cut together your abortion statements, and the great news is that we don't have many women on the show.
Yeah. That's how you promote. Texas is just going to blow up after this right now. No, we don't need those lonely boys anymore. We figured it out.
But, we may have mentioned this before, but I wanted to bring up a couple. There's really probably 507 episodes. 513 episodes. There's a couple interviews that have hit the cutting room floor that never quite made it to air. One of them, Mike, was the infamous woman who we were working with for a while, and she said, you got to interview my sister-in-law or something like that. She believes she is a incarnation of Marilyn Monroe, that she is the next I don't even know how you say it. The next
vessel.
A vessel. Marilyn Monroe. She's a spirit of Marilyn Monroe. We got to do the interview. Now, normally I would say that sounds like a perfect guest for us. Okay. But we go to do the interview, and this woman is not really answering questions. There's birds. There's constant birds tweeting in the background, and not like the Twitter version, but like tweet, tweet, tweet. And she's like, "Oh, my birds are out of control." Blah blah blah. She wasn't answering anything. You could barely hear her, and I don't believe she really even touched on the Marilyn Monroe thing that much.
No, I think her best answer is just like, I feel like I'm Marilyn Monroe. I know information about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah,
and that was like her best answer to why. Oh yeah, I'm the rebirthing of her.
If you were to be if you thought you were the reincarnation, that's the word. I just spent 3 minutes circumventing the word reincarnation because I could not think of it. That's how stupid I am. Who do you think you might be a reincarnate of?
I mean, clearly I'm a manly man. So
right.
Was Conan the Barbarian a real person or not?
So you're a reincarnation of a character played by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, so he wasn't a real person. Okay, so that can't be a good answer. Damn it.
But then again, stupid me has no idea right now if Conan the Barbarian was a real person.
Somebody Google, is this based on a true story? Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
I don't know. I never really thought of it that way.
I'm surprised with all this godliness you feel about yourself as you
Well,
reveal.
I'm a solo act, so maybe my best answer is there is nothing from the past that could perfect this. So I'm
so
just
you're a
an
one
original.
of one. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But I was thinking with all your God stuff that you once again filled us in on last week in about Heaven's Waiting Room and
Mhm.
whatnot. That you haven't lied awake at night thinking about who am I reincarnated? Am I a Kennedy? Am I Jesus? Could I have been in the bloodline of Jesus himself?
See, what I'm thinking is I'm going to have to deal with as I get older, like younger couples are going to come up to me and be like, hey, we're going to have a baby probably in like 5 years or so. If you like pass away in this time, could you come back as my baby?
Wow. For a second, I thought you were going to say they were going to have trouble finding a baby and then use you as the surrogate father, I guess, or the
No. I mean, why? Then you would only get a portion of me in the baby. Like the baby would be half perfect, and then it would be half flawed for, concerning the rest of the DNA.
Mhm.
I feel like more up and coming parents would be like, hey, if this like first pick in heaven doesn't work out and you like get traded to reincarnation or rebirth, like, could you consider our family as our new child?
Wow. Now, if you were to be reincarnated, do you think at any point that you lived a past life? And like even while you're in the baby's soul or whatever, do you have to like grow all the way up to realize that you are a descendant of Michael Burlew or a version of Michael Burlew?
I mean, I think I have to start off not knowing, because if I know like right away, then like there'd be no way of hiding it. They'd be like, this kid is too perfect. This has got to be the Burrows coming back right here. No. So I feel like I got to start off as like a child, struggle with my walking, struggle with the whole potty training, all that fun stuff. Maybe around like age 8, I'm like, you know what? Newsflash, the Burrows is back and he's better than ever.
So struggling with the English language, you may be cramping up every once in a while. Things
baby steps, that takes a lot on the calves. And if I don't have enough water, I could cramp.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen you go down with cramps. We've seen you go down with headaches at kilt fests. No, at LARPing events.
Yeah.
So back to the bird lady.
Okay.
What was your take on that?
I liked it. Like, I was fighting you to put it on there. Like, I will agree that the meat on the bone wasn't like tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it had enough of fun insanity to say that should be on the show. That should not gone into the wasteland, if you will. And I think it was just one of those, as we like had a bunch of other interviews come through, it's just one of those that, no way of finding the file. Oh, well.
Okay. Should I pursue getting this woman back on the podcast? 1, 2, do you think she's still alive? Because I could probably
1 would be yes, but 2 is an interesting question. Because like I just fear like we call somebody and they're like, oh yeah, let me go find grandma, and then it's like a Gene Hackman thing where the birds ate her and she like died. It's like, oh, she's been dead for 3 weeks and we didn't even notice, and all her parrot is stuffed full of Marilyn Monroe meat.
Marilyn Monroe meat, the title of this week's episode. That's all right. Some other ones that have never hit the airways. We interviewed a woman, which I kind of feel bad because she sent us bottles of rum, but I literally don't remember what her claim to fame was. Like, was she just a model? Was she just, like, I don't know what she was.
Best I recall was some sort of model. I can't even remember if it was just like a regular model or if she did Playboy or a little from column A and a little from column B. She was like a nice lady. It was one of those, it wouldn't have blown anybody's minds listening to the interview, but it was still good enough. It could have made it to the airways. It just, again, I think it was one of those, we had a run of interviews.
Yeah.
And it just kept getting pushed back to the point where we're like, oh, now we have no clue where to find the file.
We mentioned this with BJ McLeod a couple episodes. Veedverks, Mike, if you want to explain that one.
Yeah, there was a story out of NASCAR where a driver requested a NASCAR, hey, I got a sponsor. I guess he misspelled the name of the company, and he showed up to the track, and it was like Veedworks, where they're like, oh, this is a weed company. We don't approve of that. Side note, they kind of changed their mind on that stuff, and they allow like.
I was just going to ask you: has weed entered the NASCAR cool? Because it's everywhere else.
Yeah, it's not like an official like pot farm or something like that. But what's those like supplements that kind of act like pot?
Like THC?
There you go. I was looking for the letters. Those are out there.
We're killing the English language tonight.
Absolutely.
We're killing vocabulary.
Yeah, I do good with words. Letters, not so much, but I digress. But simply put, he showed up at the track. NASCAR's like, oh, no, we don't do that. They made him like strip everything off where he lost money in the whole deal. So I thought like, hey, let's strike where the iron's hot. Let's get the company on the show. This might be an interesting story. And let's just say they were going to the molecular levels of pot to a point where it's like even scientists would say this is a boring ass conversation.
Yeah, it was one of the driest interviews I remember. There's nothing there.
No Johnny Moisture in that interview.
No. Then we had my friend Teddy, who I found the interview. I thought about even throwing it up for something random, but he was part of a cult and I think he was during those pandemic years where we were just getting guest after guest after guest after guest, and he kind of got lost in the shuffle. And then a couple people I guess that's kind of some of them. Is there anyone else I'm missing here?
I thought there was a fifth one. Let me check back on your.
I said this weird girl Aisha that we figured out who was the teenager.
Yeah,
one girl Teddy. Monroe woman Veedverks. Okay.
Yeah, those are probably the ones that we did the interview and it never made the airwaves. Yeah.
Now I have a question for you. Kind of a side podcast question. If you had the opportunity to get a guest back to interview, like if we could do it again, or someone that like it just didn't go great or the connection sucked or something, who would you bring back?
Number one on my list was always Chris Van Vliet, who is like blowing it up with his like wrestling interviews, and even like he's doing movie interviews with stars. I always felt, in my opinion, the interview was fine. It was one of those where I was in the middle of work. My brain wasn't at the best level. I didn't do the prep that I like to do. And I feel like I just fell short in that interview where we could have had some like real good conversation. Like I randomly remember asking him like, oh, you went to college in Vancouver. That's blowing up, right? Like something silly like that, where I look back, I'm like, who the hell cares? And all, like every guest, I'll be like, oh, do you ever go to Austin?
Yeah. Yeah, that dude's like in the top like 8 in the country in sports podcast or something like that. Yeah, he interviews all these wrestlers that I know who they are. So that must mean he's like killing it right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess for like quality, maybe Dan Severin, wasn't he the one we did from an airport? Yeah, that's a good one. My pick was going to be Butterbean. If we can get a chance to like actually sit down with him and talk to him, because it was awful 5-minute interview or whatever. It was like a 15-minute interview, and he was one word answering it, and I was excited to have it. We made it part of it 300. It was so bad we like advertised. We had Butterbean, but we put on a second guest to actually sound entertaining. Tom Verney was that one. But what really kills me is I see these like other interviews that he does, and he's like bubbly and having fun. I'm like, where the hell was that?
I know he had a terrible connection. It was really hard to hear him.
I think he was doing it from his garage. Like he really didn't show any care whatsoever. I mean, it's one of those, I appreciate what you did, but if you weren't into it, you might as well tell me come back like 6 months from now.
Yeah, that was one that I was very disappointed. I was happy to put his face on our promotion stuff, but it's not a good one. And finally, there was this one. We were looking through the calendar. This one, Jacko. Since we were talking about porn stars earlier here, why don't you describe this guy?
It was a girl for starters.
Oh, it was a girl. Okay.
Yeah. I got her name, like put up like on the like podcast groups and stuff like that. People advertising stuff. She's like a DJ. I think she does a lot of stuff out of Las Vegas. And we were setting it up, and I did some research on her, and it's like, it came up with like she used to be under like DJ Darcy. I'm like, I wonder why she did that. And I looked at it more. Okay, she was going by Darcy Dolce. Let me look up Darcy Dolce. Oh, she did a lot of lesbian porn. So like I'm setting it up, and she's like, do you want to just talk about the DJ stuff? And then I'm kind of like, are you alluding to like the other stuff? Do you want us to bring up that? And it was like a weird spot where I'm like, okay, I know what you've done, but I don't need to talk about it. But are you asking to talk about it? And eventually she's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. And then it was like a weird thing where we had it up, and she kept on like messaging me. She's like, I can't get on the Zoom. And it's like, well, all we do is click on the link. That's all we do. And it got to the point where she actually like FaceTimed me to show me that it's like clicking the link and like something didn't come up. It was something up with her computer or whatever. But like after like all that, I was like, yeah, we'll reschedule. I never went back to thinking about rescheduling her. We got a run of other people, and it's like, okay, whatever.
So your search history is like some DJ in porno, the slap fighter who beats his meat. You got a very interesting.
Work has a lot of questions with me. Luckily, I'm in IT where I can hide it a lot of times. So,
and then of course the most infamous ghosting in this podcast history, Mr. Sean Kemp, of course, from Seattle Supersonics. Me having a 10-minute conversation on the phone with him. Probably never been more excited to interview someone in the early days of the podcast. Like, oh my God, I'm getting Sean Kemp on the podcast. And here we are, however many years later. I'm still bothering him like once a month, trying to get him to respond to something. And I have tried every avenue you can think of.
Yeah, the insanity is literally, I remember we started a Twitter page, literally no posts, no followers whatsoever. I just like, at Sean Kemp, would you do the podcast? Okay. It's like, oh yeah, it's that simple. Twitter is great. Everybody's going to love it forever.
Nope.
And then after the whole ghosting of it, I think he scheduled like 3 times. I remember one time, like I had to do a comedy thing for the other podcast, and you were going to do it solo, and it didn't happen. And and we rescheduled, and it never happened. It's kind of weird how we built this library, and now we can't get them. But when it's literally like at VS Comedy 000, hey, would you do our podcast? Yeah.
And it's funny because now I see Sean Kemp. He's out there like promoting. He has a weed store, and he seems to be doing meet and greet events. And I'm like, he's right there. He's right in the type of guests we're able to get that are doing like smaller things. And dude just won't respond to me. So,
do you think he got his weed from Weedworks and they like badmouthed us to them?
yeah, maybe. But you mentioned IT, working in IT. We'll kind of segue out of this. The guy we have coming on the show tonight has certainly some experience in the IT world, but I wanted to get your take on early internet days, kind of like what you remember. Like, do you remember, like one thing I always remember, like as far as being hacked or whatever, I remember the AOL days where like, I don't know, it was kind of normal to go into chat rooms. Now, if you went into a chat room, you're like a total creep. But like you click on something or get a message, and then the punters would come up. It would be like it would start to form like the shape of like Mario or something, and then eventually like sign you off with the computer. Were you ever involved in these kind of things?
I never had an issue with anything with AOL or being hacked or anything like that. I have done some IT work that involved hacker stuff. I can't really get on it on this show.
Yeah, you hacked into my cell phone.
Well, that was different. We could talk about it after the interview. I mean, that was enjoyable, and I proved a point when you thought I had zero powers. But no, from like the AOL days, like the biggest thing I found out was was like dial-up days. And what I found out was even though a number was in a certain area code, apparently there were regional numbers where it's like, yeah, it's the same area code, but we're going to charge you. So my dad was not fond of me when he got like a $200 bill in the mail after going on AOL. No, I thought I was saving him money because I always found a way to change around my computer so those 50 free hours and all that would just keep on accumulating. But needless to say, I need to save that money for the phone bill when my dad was pissed off at me.
I just remember like the early days of like AOL, like collecting the CDs with the hours on them. You're like, yes, another 10 hours of AOL, America Online. And like the first time I ever used it, I would like print out pictures of bands I liked. Like I would print out pictures of like 311 and Weezer and Sublime back then, and like clip them out and put them on my wall. And I thought that was like the coolest thing. Little did I know where the internet would slowly take me. Now I could get slap fighters beating their meat on demand.
Exactly. No, there's like, can you imagine how long it would have had to take you on dial-up to get that meat slapping to show up on your computer, Scott? Hours.
Meat slap fighting could be a really interesting sport.
Oh my God, Dana White, why are you holding back on?
Didn't we come up with the idea for a show like a while ago, getting kicked in the junk or something like that?
Sounds like us. If not, it's ours.
Oh man, I remember like, your parents picking up the phone, getting booted off the line. You'd be like, no, like the worst. But this guy we have coming on the show has taken that to different levels here. So we have a man by the name of Bryan Seely coming on the show. And Bryan he's a famous cybersecurity expert. He's been in a bunch of commercials for cyber fraud things, but he's what we call an ethical hacker. He's an author. He's a U.S. Marine. And what he is pretty well known for, he was the first person to ever wiretap the United States Secret Service and the FBI. Now, Mike, you kind of hacked my phone. Do you think you can get to Bryan's levels of getting into the Secret Service?
Well, I cannot deny, as we did this interview, when he was describing what he did, I was literally in my head saying, oh my God, I could have done this. I could have done this, and I could have done it well. I probably would have forgot about it and then got the 200 years he describes as a possible sentence. But
I mean, my closest thing was like when we used to ride bikes around the neighborhood, and my friend Alex and I would go to the payphone and dial like operator, and then like ask them for like places that didn't exist. And then, we thought it was hilarious. I'd be like, we get the numbers for RD's Naked and Eat? And they're like, what? And we're like, yeah, RD's Naked and Eat. It's a restaurant. And we thought it was like the funniest thing in the world back then. And then, of course, as I told on another podcast, 1-800 Bad Girl was another thing we'd like to call up and hear the lusty voice on the other end. But I never thought about going towards the Secret Service side of things.
Like maybe the Secret Service has like extra secret bad girls.
Oh yeah, they definitely got their own secret bad girls. Yeah.
They dial 801 bad girls.
So Bryan, a really interesting character, really good interview. So without further ado, here is Bryan Seely.
Hey, gentlemen.
What's going on, Bryan? How are you?
Good.
just letting you know, it's all downhill from here.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Ooh.
I don't-
just
That's
setting
where we aim,
expectations
baby.
nice and low.
I don't
That's where we
know,
aim,
man.
baby. And all those people go up the mountaintops. We're like, nah. We're staying on the ground here on verbal shenanigans.
I was gonna say we are pretty low at the bottom. It's hard to go much lower. So.
Where are you guys located?
So I'm in Jersey. Mike's in Georgia. So we used to be both in Jersey, but he left me. So
How
about
don't. That's the smartest thing I've ever heard. Is I left Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
See, that's Scott. I'm smart. I told you.
But where you ended up in not much better.
Oh.
Yeah,
I'm in Seattle. I can't really talk, but
I went from like 50 to 48, but it's still an improvement, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you still got Mississippi. You're always beating Mississippi.
So Bryan, it's funny. Like, I think we were supposed to have you on like it was probably like 4 years ago or something like that, and then I don't know, like. You went MIA, and I was like, "Oh no! Like, did they finally come for him? After all his,
I've had a couple rough patches of just family focused nonsense.
Yep.
Like just where you're just like, you know what? I don't ever want to. Like, I don't want to have anything on my agenda, and it just sort of like takes over.
Sure.
But yeah, apologies. I'm glad I could come on. I mean,
no problem.
We were just worried like the black market hackers found you and they're like,
Exactly.
oh, they're carrying me away.
at this point, it's not the worst option. People keep like, oh, I want to live forever. Be like, dude, work on the quality first, man. Like, shit sucks. I don't want to make this longer.
Wow, what a positive message coming from Bryan Seeley, right?
I wasn't thinking this was the motivation channel with verbal shenanigans.
No,
I just didn't.
It's quite the opposite.
That podcast never took off, so we did this side.
So I was going through my email. Every once in a while, I'll go like back into the old, inboxes or look at calendars. I'm like, oh my god, we never had Bryan on. I always wanted to, talk to him. You have such an interesting background. So first off, one, thanks for popping on for a few minutes, but two, I want to like when people like research you or hear your name and just the word like hacker carries this like negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
When we hear it, is that the first thing like people are always drawn, because you did so much after that, which we'll get into, but like, is that the first thing people are drawn to, like a hacker? Like what does that actually mean? Like, what did you do?
Right. So if it's in the context of public speaking, so companies will hire me to speak. They have like either a business development person, somebody who's booking speakers, and they'll book like somebody with a weird name, like Amelia Earhart, or, like they'll book Mark Cuban or Brian Cuban or whatever.
Yeah.
For me, it's hacker wiretap Secret Service and FBI. Isn't that dumb? No. And people want to see the train wreck. We want to watch the reality TV show. Yeah, show me the autistic guys falling in love. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like cool to turn your head and look and be like, man, that guy got fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where we're at. So that was enough of a hook for people to go, that's a bite-sized chunk. Like, oh, I want to hear about, wait, that sounds ridiculous. Let's tell me more. And then I get booked for speeches or podcast interests or get it to be shown up, on the news or whatever. And that ended up recently filming LifeLock commercials as doing demos. So
nice.
I've had no less than 25 or 30 people I've known throughout my life text or call me or message me on Facebook and be like, I was in my hotel and it was like 3 a.m. and the TV came on and I heard your goddamn voice and it freaked me the fuck out. Because I could recognize your voice without seeing your face. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty rad, man. Like,
yeah. Before we get into anything you did, I am curious, like what was your background like before all this? Were you just always a guy who knew his way around a computer? Were you a kid who was always interested in tech? Because you got to have a certain level going into this before you're able to accomplish some of the things you did. Like, what was your background?
I had a computer when I was a little kid, like 2, 3 years old. I grew up in Tokyo. My parents were working. My dad worked over there in the automotive industry,
Okay.
and then missionaries after that. So my grandparents were missionaries in Tokyo after World War II. So my whole very white family, in all of our sunscreen, lived in Japan for a very long time and speaks we all speak Japanese to some degree, and I have a Japanese middle name. My passport says born in Tokyo, but I was born an American citizen because they don't have the immigration policy of like anchoring when you're born somewhere. Then by about 13 or 14, I was getting paid to teach people how to use a computer or set up stuff, like help desk for like the community that we lived in Tokyo. I went to college in 2000 in Michigan. Didn't really joined the Marine Corps after 9/11, and then was in Intel, human signals Intel, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I was around computers much, but I got really heavy into it after getting back from contracting in the Middle East, working in Iraq and kind of all over the region, and then got back and was like, all right, well, I'm going to learn how the systems engineering, network engineering, took a course, took a boot camp on Cisco products. And, but I was always good at computers, and just like, if you've ever played a game where you get to allocate skill points to stuff, the one for talking to girls was like on the floor, and then the computer one is way up here, and I could never like.
It usually never is close, you know.
You couldn't just like hack into the girl's computer and like find some like poem and be like, yeah, I wrote that.
You can, but I was like never that smooth. Like,
please tell me you weren't the guy who made like punters on AOL where you would just knock people offline and like remember those things?
I would have been probably if I had AOL, but like AOL was pretty much in the United States, and then we had a ISP in Japan. Like I had internet in maybe 96, 97, somewhere around there. It was not good. I mean, it was like you could download an MP3 in like an hour. It was just screaming fast.
Yep.
Now, I know we'll get into like the big stuff that you talk about in the TED Talks or whatever, but what was like the first little cute hack, if you will, just something where you're like that was literally like your first.
I was getting divorced, getting clean and sober. I got diagnosed ADHD, and then I got like 6 major certifications for Microsoft within about 90 days. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, like really all of my energy's been going to my wife and kids, and now it's just okay, I got medicated, and then holy shit, I'm productive. It's like watching George on Seinfeld give up sex for the episode, and he starts looking at calculus and physics books, and it's like, woo, learning is fun. Within that year, I wiretapped the Secret Service and the FBI without permission, and then wrote a book about it and gave a TED Talk about it, and got an endorsement from Mark Cuban, found exploits at LinkedIn. And I'm pretty sure this is a roundabout way of finding out you're autistic. Like, I think that's like, I think this is the longer road to travel, maybe a train, if you will. I guess my video sometimes freezes on Zoom, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
There you are.
Yeah.
Dude, you can hack into the Secret Service, but your Zoom doesn't work?
I'm not in charge of Zoom yet.
Go after Skype and all. They were the big ones, and then somehow Zoom just like, yeah, screw you. We got this during COVID.
Yeah, no, they dropped the ball big time. Like they could have been the thing.
Yep. I say that all the time. That company, like, I'm not even sure they exist anymore. I don't know anybody who Skypes.
Skype is still Microsoft's owned it forever.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They bought it from the company who founded it, and it was Estonia, I think.
Something like that. So let's get into hacking the FBI and everything and all. So when you come up with this, like, I got all this time and hey, let me see if I can do it. The minute you get success, did you know like immediately, okay, I gotta go to them? Or was there ever a period where you're like, man, they might be busting down my door in 5 seconds here?
So this wasn't a plan. Like people were like, wow, you really put this plan together and executed it really well. And I'll be like, wow, that's amazing that you would think that. That's very generous of you. This was not a good plan. There wasn't a plan at all. Like I got frustrated that Google wasn't dealing with stuff that I thought they should have been, maybe paying more attention to. And I mean, I think a lot of things are like that. It's like we could all acknowledge something's a problem, but the level of to what that problem is, the scale and scope of it, we disagreed. So I was trying to demonstrate fake businesses, trying to show them that people are taking advantage of consumers all over the world. And they're just like, yeah, you're a dork. No one cares. I'm like, yeah, damn it. All right. Well, you're right. But all right, maybe I am. So I got frustrated enough that I built some funny business listings like Edward Snowden's secret hiding place on the White House lawn. A concentration camp in North Korea was suddenly a South Park amusement park from a joke that they did. The Westboro Baptist Church became an adult toy store and sex dungeon, I think. And then a bunch of other South Park related humor. Church of Scientology, Mormon Church. Didn't single anyone out, made sure I targeted all of them. And that didn't get the attention I thought it would. Like humor wasn't enough. So I had to do something like, what if I go for like Nixon? Nixon was getting evidence of, and FBI directors were always getting evidence on people, and it's not money, it's power. So information is something that I'm after at this point. How would I get information, or how would I leverage that? I could like wiretap a congressman's office, or like a lawyer, or like a bank. And I'm like, lawyers, no, that's a bad idea. Let's do the Secret Service. And, the people with no sense of humor who take things very seriously. Gun, earpiece. Yeah, go ahead. Get him.
No, what are you hacking into? Like their personal computer? Their
No, that was the thing. It was not even as sophisticated as people think it is. It was, I tell you to go on Google and look for something, and you find a carpet cleaner, you find a landscaper, whatever. I just told the Secret Service agents to demonstrate this. Hey, go to the Secret Service in DC and call the phone number. Well, I'm assuming he's going to use Google Maps, and now he gets a business listing. We all see these all the time. It's like a little red pin, and they're in a list like 1 through 10 or A through whatever. And he clicks on the one that says Washington, D.C. Secret Service Field Office. Clicks on it, sees a phone number, or like on a phone, you actually just see a call button because the phone number is too long for the user interface. So they just condense it into a, hey, call it or click the website or whatever. So he pushes call. He gets the other guy who he knows this person. They've worked together. He just, hey, I'm following up on something, blah, 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 blah. And it's me and 3 agents in this tiny little lobby. We have a couple chairs and that's about it. And after he hangs up, I get a notification from an advertising, like a call platform where you can set up 1-800 numbers, local phone numbers. So if you have call centers, anytime you have a commercial on television, whether it's like call 1-800-NEW-BLINDS, well, that number has to point to a real local number of maybe the phone system you have for your call center. And then once it gets to that phone number, it gets routed within your company, however you've set up. But the outside routing, kind of like the internet, has to go somewhere. And through the 1-800 number is how they do that. And that's where they record calls for quality assurance. Or they do tell you, or they don't, depending on the state. I elected to record calls, but not notify. And then I just replaced the real business listing for the Secret Service with one that I made. And I moved from Seattle to DC, and then said, hey, there's a duplicate here. This one's spam. People should get rid of it. And then I signed into different accounts for a little while on VPNs, and hey, you're right, this is a duplicate. Get rid of it. And then after about 5 or 6 of them, they got rid of the original. And then mine had the website, a different phone number, but if you call the phone number, you still get the Secret Service. So like, where's the prank? Like, where's the hack? Everything went as expected.
No,
and that's the worst.
When you're doing this, like, is your motivation like? Are you trying to be helpful?
I'll show you,
are you
idiots.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
are you
the idiot
laughing?
behind
Like,
the keyboard
Yeah.
is not laughing. He's like, I'm gonna. And then as soon as it happened, I got like 40 calls within an hour, and I listened to the first one, and it was like a wrong number kind of thing. And then the second one was a cop calling about an active investigation, and then another because they found counterfeit money. And then another lady called asking for the inspector general of the Secret Service. Jeez. And the guy's like, we don't have that. And she's like, no, I need to speak to him now. And he's like, we don't have one of those. And he hangs up. And then I realized that sound that I'm hearing is my butt puckering up real hard because I'm going to be shitting a brick house. I just committed a major alleged felony, and it turns out it's 5 years per phone call.
Oh,
and I'm not a math expert, but I'm pretty good, reasonable enough to know that 200 is not achievable.
No, not yet.
Not yet. You could break a record. You already done one thing amazing. You could go for two.
If what would be amazing is if it just all ended tomorrow. That would be like, I've lived a life. It has been wonderful. I can't see it ever getting better. It's all downhill from here. I didn't end up in a Crown Vic. I mean, in the back of a Crown Vic, like the trunk. That was nice. They did take me into a back room for about 4 hours. They did pat me down. When that happened with the whole demonstration thing, they were ready to let me leave. They're like, we'll call you. And I was like, I can prove it. And if I can't prove it, I'll leave. And I proved it. And then all of a sudden they're interested. And now I want to go. But I'm not going to play that game because they're like, you're not under arrest. You're not being detained. I was like, well, then I watched enough YouTube videos of sovereign citizens to know that I'm free to leave, aren't I? No, maybe this isn't the time to be playing this game.
Yeah.
You should have wiretapped that lawyer to help you out in this conversation.
Right? I did it all backwards. But after 4 hours of demonstrations, they called Google. They yelled at them. They turned things off for a while. They told me, you're never allowed to do this again. Like, this was all your 9 lives. Thank you for telling us. We don't find any criminal intent. We're not going to be seeking, we're not going to be charging you with anything. You're free to go. We're putting you on a list. That last part was implied. I'm just assuming. And then that was basically it. And then it made news and Gizmodo and a bunch of other places, and everyone else pretty much agreed. Like, people on Twitter were like, this guy's a spy, and there's no way he just got to walk out of there. And I'm like, I don't know if white privilege is real, but I know if it is, that was it. It has to be.
Like, were you breathing easy the first couple days afterwards? Or were you still like checking your curtains, seeing if there's a car parked out there or anything?
Waking up and just went like, car backfiring, and be like, no. I was pretty transparent about the whole thing, and they didn't catch me. It was like me turning myself in. So, there's not a lot you can fault me for in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Being dumb and poor judgment, for sure. Like, if it was prosecutable, I think I'd be in a long line of people being charged for having poor choices.
So what happens next? Like, this all kind of like, the trouble part of it dies down. And where you get to today, like, did the interest from the story start giving you opportunities? Like, where did you go next from here?
That was basically it. So the FBI, people ask if the FBI or the Secret Service wanted to hire me, and I was like, no, I'm a bit mouthy. At one point, I asked to see one of the agent's guns just to be a douche, and he's just like, no. I'm like, well, you can take the bullets out. You searched me. If you didn't search me well enough, I might still have bullets, and in which case you probably shouldn't do that. So are you not good at your job? And it was like, I'm going to go to jail for something.
Yeah.
Probably not talking shit, but maybe. They didn't want to hire me. Other companies thought it was a novelty. I've ran into a couple people in job interviews that saw the story or ended up seeing the TED Talk at one point. got recognized a few times. One time with a mask on during COVID, which just said to me, "You've got a really big forehead." Like I didn't really, kind of like a Peyton Manning sort of thing, but without the giant bank account, which is less than ideal. But it led to other opportunities. Speaking, the TED Talk was the first time doing any public speaking type stuff, and I was actually okay at it. I wasn't as nervous as I thought I'd be. I like doing webinars and teaching people stuff, or at least being able to deliver information maybe in a funnier way than normal, because a lot of people try to be super smart and say big words, and it comes across as really boring. And yeah, it's not. I don't want to listen to it. So if I have to tell people stuff or talk about stories, I want to make it as interesting as possible. And I think that led to, more and more things, and eventually being asked to do a LifeLock commercial, doing speaking engagements all over the world, meeting people that I never thought I'd meet. So,
Sure.
Now, when you get out of this point and all, and you kind of increase your knowledge and all, what is like something that like you see people do every single day where you're just like, oh my God, you don't know how much danger you're putting yourself into with your systems?
Oh, well, I was going to say dating, but it's such a nightmare. Using the same password over and over again for a bunch of different sites, even if it is fairly complex. If you use it more than once, it doesn't matter how complex it is. Let's say you have Hotmail and your password is "I love grizzly bears."
How did you know?
Picture.
Yeah. I'm looking right at it. So if it doesn't matter if it's got capitals or whatever is your password, if you reuse it another place, MySpace gets breached and you've been signing in with your Hotmail password, people are going to try to sign into your email from there with that same password. And if it works, now your email's gone. And that's how people lose their Instagram accounts. That's how people get extorted, or, we found nudes of you, or pretending to find nudes of people. I've had people who get stalked who have OnlyFans accounts, and then all of a sudden they're like, they get a letter with a picture of their house and their name and their phone number. And it's like, we know where you are, and we have video from your webcam of you doing things on the internet that are inappropriate. We're going to send it to all your friends. And she's like, I make adult content. You're going to promote me? I don't get it. Like, this is a weird threat. And I was like, that's why it's fake. They didn't do their research. They're sending this to 1 billion people. But nobody posts that stuff because they're unsure. Like, a lot of people don't post it because they're unsure if other people are getting it. They don't want to look stupid. We don't have like a Last Week Tonight or Saturday Night Live for tech updates and like the latest scams going around, because it's not sexy. And if I was delivering it, it would definitely not be sexy. We need something else, someone else to make it interesting or produce it well, but it's not made it into the mainstream yet.
So what is people's like biggest cybersecurity threat these days? Like, all you see is the advertising, the lifelong, everything, but
complacency.
Like
Really,
complacency.
Not updating your phone, not updating your computer. It's not changing your oil. That's all it is. How long are you going to go before your engine seizes up and dies? Well, in this case, not changing your passwords or not having a password manager means all of your stuff gets taken. If you don't use MFA, that's probably the worst one. So if you don't have a second factor authentication method, and that sounds so like my ex-girlfriend would say, like, she's like, yeah, that makes me really want you when you talk like a scientist. Like, yeah, I get it. I'm getting it.
Abbreviate it again. Make it shorter. MFA.
Right. But MFA is just having a PIN code for your debit card. The debit card is a thing you have. The PIN code is a thing you know. And that all the PIN code is doing is verifying that the card is still with the person who knows the PIN code and it's matched up. It's identification. And then the only other real methods after that are like biometrics. And we haven't really got into that for everything else. But we use it all the time, but there's just no way to talk about it. It's like PIN code authentication, text message authentication, those are kind of dangerous, especially if you use crypto, because people will bribe someone at a telco to give them your cell phone number for like 5 minutes so they can get a text message from Coinbase or something. And then Coinbase really can't help you or other, blockchain places can't really help you if other places got hacked. In the same way that Google Maps isn't responsible if someone abuses the postal service mail forwarding system. There's all sorts of things like that where it's like, I'm not liable for other people's screw ups. You don't hold Best Buy accountable or Microsoft accountable if you don't set a password on your brand new laptop. That's on you. But for some reason, where the responsibility lies, it's like if you're going to use your phone, you need to update it regularly. Set it up, put on a binge watch a show and just push update until it says okay. Like it has to be a scheduled thing. It's not fun.
I will say it's kind of comical. Like as you talk about, you got to update stuff. I remember the story where the airlines were hacked, and I think Southwest was the only ones who weren't hacked because they were still on like Windows 3.1 or something crazy like that. It's almost like reverse psychology. It's so sophisticated, you can't catch us.
Well, that in Alaska was using iPads and Apple devices for a lot of their in-flight stuff. So I was in Dallas the last time that all happened. All the other airlines were screwed up. I was trying to get back to Seattle and I'm like, yes, got on Alaska. Everything's fine. But then I was coming back from the LifeLock commercial in Oklahoma and the door fell off one of the planes and they took like 200 planes out of service and I got stuck in LA for 3 days. And then I had to fly to Vegas the next day and wait another day to catch a connecting flight because so many people got stranded. Not fun.
Now, when you go through this and you kind of see the dark side to all this and you help different companies, and are you able to turn this part of your brain off when it comes to like tech stuff, or like is it always like on high alert or looking at systems that are broken and stuff like that? Are you able to relax with it or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got kids, and so like we'll watch YouTube videos, but my son will want to watch like crappy AI voiceovers to see if we can spot one that's AI, or so they'll say an acronym wrong, or they'll put the wrong intonation on something and be like, U.S. Navy SEALs is spelled or typed U.S. space Navy space SEALs. So the AI is like, in the U.S. Navy SEALs, and it's like it starts the sentence off at the top, and you're like, oh my God, that was so dumb. And like rewind it and listen to it back again. And like you can notice vocabulary, acronyms are really bad. It's going to take a while because you guys use different accents and different vocabulary than I do. And from where I grew up, same as like British people, they even spell aluminum different and they say it aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah.
So it's two different spellings in the dictionary now. So like there's plenty of things like that AI doesn't know yet. There's so much stuff online that's AI content that's making it easier to make informational videos, but it's also easier to make misinformation campaigns. And then how to validate and verify what you're seeing instead of listening to a pretty face who's loud on TV, on pick a channel, left or right. They're both the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I saw a video where you were showing you set up malware on one of those public USB chargers, and it's just like,
oh yeah, that was fun.
I see absolutely everything you've done on your phone. I got your bank account. I know your wife's name and stuff like that. Is there anything public where you're willing to touch and know, like a free VPN or Wi-Fi or anything like that?
No. If you don't own it, you're using someone else's stuff. Well, if anybody has any inclination, it's not hard. If you're on Starbucks Wi-Fi, chances are you can access other people's machines who are also on that Wi-Fi. And if you don't have your firewall turned on or you're not savvy enough to really know what you're doing, you can't really defend yourself against these people. And they look like everybody, really. It's not like all of us wear hoodies or, or a certain height, weight. It's
no uniform. Yeah.
there's yes, it would be helpful if there was, but there's no way to defend yourself that way. So I don't use hotel Wi-Fi when I travel. If I can help it, I use my phone. I tether to use Wi-Fi hotspot on my iPhone, or I'll bring a portable router that you can get on Amazon for $50 to $200, depending on how much you want to spend, that has like a SIM card, and it gives you your own Wi-Fi hotspot. You can get them from Verizon or T-Mobile as well. You want to use your own infrastructure so you know that you're safe. It's like the whole idea behind a VPN. Yes, that's great, but you take it one step further. If the VPN fails, you're trusting people who have a whole other company affiliations, loyalties. And there's only one VPN that I've ever used that I still currently trust, and that's Proton. And they're out of Switzerland. Proton VPN, Proton Mail, that kind of stuff. And then if you go, well, what about, yes, I don't trust that other company. A through Z, pick one. They've had encryption keys leaked on the web. They've discovered hacks and then didn't change things. I trust Proton VPN. That's it. I don't make any money off of any referral code. Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Nice.
I guess you guys have seen the movie, so that's great. Like I had two people they're like, "What is that movie? I haven't even heard of it." And be like, "You haven't. You need to go."
Out of curiosity, as you brought up movies, have you ever seen like a TV show or a movie of a hacker, and you're just like, "My God, that's terrible! What you're trying to show me here."
I'm still bent out of shape over the Marine with John Cena, and he was wearing an army cover. Like it's like the Marine, and then his cover's round, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's not how. Or like, people throw fragmentation grenades, and then there's this big fireball, and you're like, that's also wrong. Like military movies do the same thing, but there's a CSI or NCIS or something where someone's defending against hackers on a keyboard, and they need help, and then they have someone else come type on the same keyboard at the same time.
Nice.
And then my brain just, it hurt a little bit. Like,
What about if you went back to the movie Hackers from the 90s? How realistic is that one?
Angelina Jolie.
Where they
That's
go
all you
through
need
like
to know.
where they go through like the little graphic portal into the other
I mean, it's really hard to make computer stuff interesting on film or on camera, because you have to demonstrate a hacker doing his work. It's going to be 24 to 48 or longer hours watching him just.
Yep.
It's so boring. So to make it interesting, they come up with these abstracts or concepts.
Sure.
We could animate portals for VPNs, like, but there's no point. It just takes up extra
Sounds
resources.
great, man.
Like,
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Let me get
hackers,
into work. Sliders.
it would be great, but they don't. The people building that stuff and the people end up consuming it. They don't care about us enough to entertain us at all. It's just wait till the thing is green in the corner. We're going to make it small. So as your eyesight gets worse over time, it'll be harder to see. And then your eyes are already straining for hours. So, and then we're going to make brighter monitors every year. That's fun. So yeah, it's not sexy. It's not entertaining, but once you learn a little bit, you can find those things that it's like a quest or a mission, and you start uncovering things. And once you figure out like, oh, I'm looking for this thing, and it leads to another thing, and it's puzzle solving, man, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm assuming talking to like the opposite sex, or, picking up people in public or be like, hey, you want to go out on a date? I'm assuming that's fun too, but this is all I have to know, like context wise.
So Bryan, first off, I want to thank you for sharing some time with us, man. You're a really entertaining guy.
Thank you.
What if people want to like check you out now? I know you do a lot of keynote speaking, public speaking, things that went up. What is your kind of day-to-day thing if they want to check out some of your speeches, work? Like, where's the best place for them to go?
If you search Bryan Seely, bryanseely.com has contact info. There's YouTube videos, probably like 100 to 200 speeches and different things. I've been working on a book and I haven't been doing tons of public stuff because I could be on a podcast or the news every day of the week. And that's not a brag. It's more like a chore because you're sitting there waiting. You go on the news. People say, hey, I saw you. I use the news to figure out what channel my friends watch because they'll say, hey, I saw you on Fox or hey, I saw you on CNBC and be like, all right, check. Like,
life hack.
Don't talk about immigration with Carl. All right. It's just, it becomes bonkers, but it never pays you. And it's like, people know you, sure. But raising kids alone kind of takes a bit of time if you're trying to do it even half-assed right.
Yeah.
I got a 16-year-old, 10-year-old full-time for like 9 years now.
Okay.
And then I've got a 2-year-old half-time.
Wow.
And that's a bit of a time suck.
Yeah.
Didn't plan that out either. But if you guys ever run out of guests or all the interesting people are busy, I'm more than happy to fill in or come back and talk. There's always more stories.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on, man.
Yeah. Final question from me. And what was your best computer tag name or whatever, like your AOL account from like the 90s or something like that?
I suck at making those, man. Like,
I had Lord Punk 1 and Liquid Slap Bass. Those are my two.
Liquid Slap Bass.
Yep. That was bass player. Yep. Pretty great, right?
I think I was Beavis.
Those are pretty.
Burlew
I mean, the hot's hard to beat.
That's also my password for all my credit card info. So,
yep.
I don't have any good ones. I think someone came up with like Bryan the Maps guy, but like trying to figure out how to brand and like figure out how to plan out YouTube content. It's like, you should use your full name. And I was like, and then also cybersecurity, or like it turns into it's too long. And like Seely, you can't, like, I can't marry a girl named Ashley or Sally because then it's Sally Seely. That's just retarded. Like you can't do that. Everyone's going to look at you like you're an idiot. I already know what that feels like.
Silly Sally.
So yeah, we're just slowly figuring it out. Like I've been on a couple TV shows, been in a documentary. Someone's trying to pitch another one. Right. I'm working on a book about how to avoid or deal with stalkers, I guess is the next big thing. And then more of a mental health side of the book. From everything after the TED Talk, which involved topics that are just huge bummers. And there's a couple videos about that in YouTube, but dealing with depression, like talking openly about being a drug addict, how I got out of that, my daughter being trafficked, my mom dying of cancer at the same time, and like having to you get too many things all at once, and you're just like, I don't know how to cope with this. And you're like, I know drugs. That sounds great. And it's not the answer. But that's like, if you're an addict, it's the first idea. And so then how do you deal with it when you're not trained for that kind of stuff? And life gets messy.
It does. It does. And all that stuff is a conversation for the next time we bring you on. So
sounds good. I'll look forward to that.
Thanks so much for coming on, Bryan, and stay safe out there. And thanks for all the tips and the stories and the ridiculousness. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, feel free to ask questions, send emails anytime.
Bryan Seely, Mike. That's a guy who has quite a sense of humor about almost going to prison for life.
Yeah, good for him, man. I mean, most people are like paranoid if they don't use their blinker in traffic, they're going to get like a ticket or whatever. That dude was facing life in prison. He's just like, oh, come on, guys.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It's me.
Hey, come on. Who's your hacker?
What would be your approach if you got caught? Let's say I reported you for hacking my cell phone. You get pulled into a room, and they're like, "All right, Mr. Burlew, please, empty your pockets. You're going to put your hands in cuffs on this table." What's your approach to getting out of trouble?
I feel like I would just pick like the weirdest country in the world and say I'm a spy for them and just make up a story on the spot. That way I could get an insanity plea fairly easy. Like I would just say like I'm a spy from Chad and just like really ream into it how like Chad's going to take over the United States and this was our first steps. And
so you think the strategy is to say that you're a spy from a foreign country, and that's
but a weird one.
So that's
like don't say Russia. Like you're going to jail immediately if you say that. Like go, look at the map and find like the Maldives, the very tiny islands out of the Indian Ocean. That's a country and all. Like tell them I'm a spy from the Maldives because you kind of sound cool, but at the same time they're kind of like, okay, I can't take this guy seriously.
Yeah,
which makes him cool.
But I think I think the minute you throw out the spy word and you said I'm a spy, I think you're getting kept there for a little while, and they're going to start running some background checks. And
half the fun is like they're going to have to figure out where the Maldives is at, and then they have to figure out how they call them.
Yeah, but then they're going to start looking at your background and realizing all the dead bodies you've been around, that you constantly see people die. There's a chance that this doesn't end well for you.
Well, it's going to be in a bad spot when they look at my internet history and see I look at meat slappers and DJ porn ladies and stuff right off the bat.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Mike has a trail of bodies that has, I think we were up to 5 or 6, where I said I've seen one dead person in the wild, if you will.
Was it a nature tour?
I saw one dead guy on the parkway. Mike, bodies just drop all over the place around him when he's at a restaurant, when he's food shopping, where he works, in a river he's visiting. It's a pretty wild, yeah. It's a pretty wild thing that he just denies, along with his fetish for his mother's underwear. But
I don't. Again, number one, I picked up a bra and an undershirt. There was
and twirled it.
Well, because of the spasms. You're not factoring in the spasms when you're telling the audience about this, Scott.
Oh, God. Anyway, so one of the things we've been doing here on the show, we had it a little while ago. Then we kind of stopped doing it. But it brought back is the Verbal Shenanigans newsletter. So if you're listening to this, you dig what you're hearing, or you dug last week's episode, it's right on Substack. You can subscribe to it. And it's just a weekly newsletter where we've kind of been reflecting. Each week's kind of, we found a theme. Like this week, I was just talking about the grind of things and how, like, we're talking to Jojo Garza of Los Lonely Boys. He was talking about the grind and almost losing his brother and cancer scares and winning a Grammy in front of his father. And I was talking about, like, would that award like mean a lot to you, or is it just like looking back, at all the steps, the DIY approach? I kind of compared it to the podcast here. Like, if this was ever to become a job or more successful, would I love it as much? Would I love having another voice telling me, you guys got to do this or that? Or do I want to, lose the hunt for guests, or the ability to, we tried everything, whether it's a massive failure or whether it was a successful thing. Now, of course, I'd love to get paid a nice paycheck to do this, but would I look at it the same way? And that was kind of the theme of this week. And then this week was also Grammy Award winners that we've had on the show, which turns out to be a good amount of winners, but a ton of people who've been nominated before. I sent Mike one of a band called Thumpasaurus. Now, you might have heard them. They've had a big the last couple of years, but when we interviewed them, they were this tiny little band coming up. And then it turns out the one guy is a Grammy Award winner. He wasn't even, a nominee. I just randomly looked up Dumpasaurus Grammy. I'm like, no way. And then I found out Guar was nominated for 2 Grammys.
Yeah.
Like, I found out some very interesting things here.
Also crazy is we looked at some of our bigger names like Dee Snider and George Thorogood. And,
Creedence Clearwater. Yeah.
Creedence Clearwater. We've had 2 members on that. No, not even a nomination. Like Creedence is in on like a Hall of Fame, they call it. At the same time, it's almost weird. Like, I'm in the Hall of Fame, but you never gave me an award for this.
It's great. I mean, out of all the bands, that was the one that shocked me the most. I mean, that is like Americana band that everyone in the world likes, as we also talked about with JoJo last week. But so Mike took a theme this week because, you know, the hit song of JoJo Garza and the Los Lonely Boys is Heaven. How Far is Heaven? You probably heard it a million times before. We also talked about our ideas of what heaven is last week. Mike went a little off the rails as usual. But Mike, you wrote a little piece, and I didn't even read it that much because I wanted to break it down here on the podcast. So
Okay.
yeah. So go ahead, Mike. What the hell was this?
Okay. Are we going to just talk about the religious screen door in question?
Yes. We're, if the story had a title, it might be called The Religious Screen Door. Yes.
Yeah. So as I
can't wait for Bryan Sealy, Marilyn Monroe meet and The Religious Screen Door.
That just sounds wonderful right there, Scott. That's why you got to tune in every week, ladies.
That's like, I think about like the Los Lonely Boys interview. We're getting a lot of traction on the clip, and then people going and looking at the name of the episode, and it's like JoJo Garza, Heaven's Waiting Room, and Guinea Pig Cuisine. They're probably like, what is this nonsense? But anyway.
Yeah, the Texans are like, wait a minute, where's our guinea pig meat here? What the hell?
Yes.
All right. So as I kind of pointed out in the newsletter, like the family is not really super religious or anything. Like my sister is kind of religious, but never been like a huge thing. We're kind of like either spiritual or nobody goes to church. But I do recall, like early on in life, the story of this wooden entrance door, as my dad put it. I always remember growing up, the story saying it was a screen door. But my aunt Shirley, they lived at like an apartment, I would say somewhere in central Jersey, and they had this door that had like a stain on it. And then one day, you just kind of looked at it and they're like, oh, man, that's Jesus Christ. That stain looks like Jesus Christ. Like my Aunt Shirley saw it. She like called over the kids, look at this. What are you saying? They were like, Mommy, that's Jesus Christ. So they had like this, as I always thought, screen door, but as again, a wooden entry door. So I guess like there's a door to get into the apartment complex and then their front door.
Gotcha.
But this door had a stain that looked like Jesus, and it was like a big deal to the family. Where that I don't know how they could obtain it if they were in an apartment, but they have saved the Jesus wooden screen door, and it's like still in the family.
Now,
I've never seen said door. I've always heard the story, or at least if I did, I don't have any memories of it, but it was just very odd. Like I said, I only went to church like in my teens for like a few years, like nothing I've heard outside my sister in later years of anybody bringing up Jesus or a certain religion or anything like that. But the running thing was my Aunt Shirley had Jesus on the door, and they saved it, and it's apparently somewhere in the family, like hanging around. I don't know if it's in a storage, if it's like passed down to any family members, but we have Jesus on the screen door.
There's a lot we got to get into here. Okay. First off, this is, for you Always Sunny fans, an exact plot of a famous Always Sunny episode where they have a stain in the bar and they start charging people to come see the Jesus stain that's on the door. They get Charlie and Mac are the priests, and Charlie is like, I got the good Lord coming down on me. And he's in the white suit, and then eventually the one guy pisses on the stain and ruins the stain. So that's what that reminded me of instantly. But so the Jesus store. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
you say it's still in your family. Okay.
For what I understand,
You realize you have to get a picture. The simplest thing is to get a picture of this. B, you got to start putting your mark in the Burlew family to get this door. This needs to be in your house in the front door, like the Jesus door.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see. Like, I know my cousin; she's been going through some health issues and stuff, so it's not a easy thing to bug. I don't know which of my cousins on my uncle and aunt's side has said door. Like, I only knew it was still in the family as I forgot the name of my Uncle Billy's wife, so I had contacted my dad. I'm like, hey, weird question to ask you, but do you remember the Jesus on the screen door thing? That's where he corrected me. Well, one, son, it was a wooden entry door.
Yep.
And two, it was your Aunt Shirley who saw it. And I'm like, okay.
I'm picturing the Burlews getting together on Easter, like in front of the door and reflecting and saying putting flowers in front of the door. Your cousin has health problems. It's because the door is not on the house. It's stored away. If she was near the door, not be an issue.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to bring a door into emergency room to keep by her bedside and stuff. It's hard enough like just bringing like regular like flowers and things or whatever. I think it'd be very complicated to have two moving people bringing in a wooden screen door into the emergency room.
Now you need to acquire this door and hang it on the wall behind you during the podcast. So we got the twerking Chewbacca picture done by our good friend Tiffer Wright.
Yep.
One of one, amazing piece of art. How great would the Jesus door being hung right behind there look in the podcast studio?
Yeah, like I'm gonna have to make some room. Like, I don't know if I take down the NASCAR vending machine that I never fix. Or
what if you take the door off the vending machine and make it a Jesus door?
But then again, like if I get it fixed and I put cool drinks in there, how will they know which like beer or beverage comes out?
No,
they'll just be poking Jesus, and he might not like that.
Well, considering that NASCAR soda machine has been behind you and you haven't fixed it in 12 years that we've been doing this, I don't think that's
12 years, maybe 6.
I don't think that's a problem that you have to worry about. People not knowing what beverages are coming out of your NASCAR machine.
Yeah.
The Jesus store, however, you claim to have all this first draft pick stuff in heaven. How you should be the rightful heir to the Jesus store.
Yeah, I don't know what the order is. Like I said, I don't know if somebody is paying to keep the door. Where's it at? I don't know. Like what scenario would have to happen? Like if like everybody on my uncle's side passes away, like which Burlew family takes over?
Well, it's time to put the full court press on to acquire this door. Maybe a letter, maybe an email, maybe a campaign, a Kickstarter.
What if like I come up in May?
Mm-hmm.
You're at the church. Your lovely daughter is about to get christened, and you're like, I feel the spirit, but I feel something is missing.
Right.
And then I kick open the church doors, and I bring in the Jesus door. Screen door.
Yeah. I mean, the door in my basement, we need to replace it at some point. I'm thinking I would love to have the Jesus door.
Well, then it would be out of the family. Like, you have kids. I understand you don't have kids, so it would stay in the Brennan household for generations to come. But do you feel, I know your kids are kind of young, do they have the maturity to realize the power that they purvey with this religious screen door?
We talked about my son leaving a dump on someone's stairs a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, see, that's my first concern. Once if he just leaves the turd on the screen door.
Yeah.
What am I going to tell Jesus when to get up there?
So I'm going to have to answer no, he doesn't have the whereabouts to know that it's a holy door. But I also don't know if I 100% trust you with the door, because I can see, you've had a lot of weird injuries and klutzy moments. I can see you like cracking a beer that we get from Dogfish and spilling it all over Jesus, and that's the end of the Burlew family door.
Scott, I accidentally fell through the Jesus door. I'm trying to tape back together Jesus. It's not working.
Now, I can't believe you've never seen the door.
I knew the story. I don't have any memories of it. I'd have to ask the parents again. Like, was I ever in the vicinity? Like, they've been going through a couple things, so I'm trying to lean off against the comedy at the moment. But at the same time, as you like are poking me, I'm kind of like, yeah, I am kind of curious if I ever truly did see it and I just blocked it from my memory, you know?
Yeah. Like, are we talking a baby Jesus stain? Are we talking Jesus on the cross? Are we talking Jesus at the Last Supper? What version of Jesus is the stain?
Yeah, maybe it's resurrected Jesus. He's a little funky after coming out of the ground and stuff, but he's still Jesus.
Are we talking his silhouette? Are we talking a real detailed face in the stain? Like, I have so many questions that I need answers to. I really don't care about anybody else. I need to know.
Like, once of it's just his initials. Like, it's like, it wasn't Jesus Christ. We just see a JC on there, and then we realized we're at the JC apartment building. So that probably explains things.
Yeah, but I think one of your life's purposes now is to make a full court press to acquire the Jesus door and become the rightful owner. And who knows where life takes you from that? Maybe that's what we're missing here. Maybe that's what gets us to the next level if we have a little Christ on our side.
Yeah, I as we're talking about this, I'm a little worried. Like, one of the family just like, oh, this is just storage or nothing, whatever. And then they have like an episode of Storage Wars, and like somebody bids like $50.
Yeah, because if you don't know,
it's crack it open, and they're like, oh my God, I got the Holy Grail on a screen door.
Yeah, and if you don't know, if it's in the wrong hands and you don't know it's the Jesus door, that just might find its way into the garbage.
Oh man, or even worse, like ones of like Marilyn Manson gets the Jesus wooden entry door.
Yeah, what if the Jews get it?
Yeah, the Palestinians are screwed at that.
Yeah, so I don't know. You gotta try to pursue this quest for the listeners, and more importantly for me, because I need to know.
Like, we got to build our YouTube channel, so I feel like we should have an adventure after the christening. We go to Central Jersey on a journey for the Jesus screen door.
Do not tempt me. I will take a day off and bring a bunch of camera equipment with us as we search for the Jesus door.
We got your request for PTO. We looked under description, and we have a few questions for you, Scott.
I would just put religious
religious wooden entry door.
Religious experience. Wow. You know what? I was also thinking, Mike, we've told so many stories on this podcast. I'm going to keep you on the story seat.
Ooh,
here.
Okay.
There's stories that, we've had a couple listeners stay with us over the years, but sometimes we bear these great stories that have been told and we say, I told that story already. It's time to rehash a classic. And you brought it up the other day. And in the spirit of Grammys, this is the only way I could tie it in. You have a very interesting story about your grandma. Like, the Burlew family, as we start to learn these stories, just really starts to get more intriguing by the minute.
All starting with the Buckaloos, who were famous horse thieves in Europe, apparently, and the police of Europe were going to catch them, and the family split up, and one group stayed Buckaloos, and one group turned to Burlews right there.
Yes. So you have a story about your grandma that I think it's time for listeners to hear one more time.
Yeah, and it fits well because baseball season, well, technically it starts like in a week, but we've had 2 games technically because of the Tokyo game. So
very strange, but
bringing it out there. Yeah,
all
so
right. Baseball's around the corner. The weather's turning. Mike, enchant us with a wonderful story of Burlew.
Retro Burlew story. Yes. Yeah, so we're going to go back. We're going to go back to when it was about, I'm going to say somewhere in the lower double digits, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. I had an aunt
62 years ago.
No, not that far, Scott. I had a different aunt, not one with a religious screen door. My Aunt Penny. She said, like, she had a bunch of old baseball cards that she had, and she knew I collected baseball cards. So she's like, yeah, I ain't gonna use these or whatever. Let me give them over to you. And this is the prime of like baseball cards. They put out magazines with like the prices of them and everything like that. This
I
is
believe
like,
that it was Beckett magazine. I believe was the
yeah, I think you may be correct on that. So, like, she gave me like a whole big old sleeve, all these baseball cards, and I'm just going through all of them, and I'm like, this one is just great. And I'm getting like some decent ones, comparing it to the magazine. Now, granted, none of us knew about like grading and all that fun stuff back then. We just assumed if it says it in the magazine by rule, I can make this money or whatever.
Right.
And I even remember there was a Don Manley rookie card worth like $26 at the time, and probably now is worth 26 cents, but I digress. And it was just like, I just remember being so happy. It's like going out, oh my God, look at, I had 2 full books of baseball cards that I set up all the expensive ones in one, and I had one I got actually as a giveaway at a Phillies game. So I had the Phillies emblem at the top, and I mostly had like Phillies players in that one, and whatever space I had the extra one. So I was just,
and now you have a Lenny Dykstra Christmas ornament.
I do, and a signed Lenny Dykstra photo up there as far as Shenanigans Showdown. I got that. I digress. So I am just stoked, and I am showing all the family this. I am just so happy. I'm showing like Dad would come home for lunch, and I'm like, Dad, I got this card, and it's worth $15. Oh, that's great, son. And showing my brother, and showing my sister's boyfriend, and showing my uncle and grandmother. I'm just like the happiest kid in the world.
Happy as a little boy.
Yeah. Boy with his baseball cards. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Fast forward.
You went to the door and was like, thank you, Jesus. For my Don Mattingly.
Mom, get the other hand on the phone. So fast forward to the summer. Like I said, I pull out those baseball cards every day, almost looking at them, all happy with it. One day during the summer, I'm just like, I can't find my big book of baseball cards. I'm circling around. I'm looking in the basement. I'm looking outside. I'm looking in my closet. I'm distraught. I'm like, it's one thing to not see them, but like days, I am searching around the household for the life of me. I can't figure out where my big set of baseball cards. I still had the little Phillies one in there, so I still kept like my Wally Backman card. I'm sure it's worth millions right now.
So you're looking for your valuable $26 card, and your
Don Manley rookie $26 card that I'm going to retire with, because everybody knows baseball cards just went through the freaking moon right there. And for the life of me, like, I looked around, could not find it. Super depressed. I'm like, I don't know what I did. Could not be found. Well, fast forward a couple years later, my grandma passed away. She passed away on the couch. I was in the house, so Scott counted her on the body list that he brought up earlier. So grandma,
I actually forgot about that one too.
Yeah. So, I still remember like watching TV in the other room. Parents came back. I heard of like a blood curdling scream from my mom. Ambulance came. They're trying to revive her. I actually thought there was something good, like, because they would give her CPR, the mouth to mouth, and I would hear a gurgle from her stomach. And young me is like, oh, it's making sounds. She's coming right back. And all
right.
And before somebody explained to me, that's called the death gurgle, but I digress. And
death gurgle. Yeah.
So, grandma passed away, and she was living at the house at the time through all this.
No
So,
one, no one, no one. No one
up to
ran out.
that point, obviously.
No one ran out of the house to go get the door real quick, like one last try.
No, South Brunswick to Edison. That's at least 30 minutes. It
Get
would
the
be
door.
Put the body on the door and let's see what happens. It's good to laugh at dead grandma stuff, but
Yeah,
anyway,
of course.
yeah.
Oh,
So, okay, she's declared. They take her away. We're just going to start cleaning out her room and all her stuff. And I remember first thing is like everything is settled and your brain is wrapping to the realization that a family member has passed away and how does this affect you and all that. Like the whole family's over. We're going to start cleaning out grandma's room. And I remember my dad, as they're about to start, he turned to me. He said, by the way, your grandmother stole your baseball cards and gave it away to her boyfriend.
I like the timing of Big Wild Hank here. Like, oh, grandma's dead. And he goes, by the way, grandma stole a baseball card.
Well, while she's all on the subject here.
He just scrambled your brain in like all different ways at that moment.
Yeah. It might have been like the night or the day after or something
As
like
you're
that.
kneeling over her at the wake, he's like, grandma stole your cards.
It was somewhere in between. It was like she died, the funeral in between. Pops told me, by the way, she gave away your baseball cards. So there was like this weird thing, like thinking about like how good of a boyfriend is like a 77-year-old man where like you want to get into his pants and the best way to do it is to steal your grandson's baseball cards and go, here you go, I got you something.
Yeah, was he like, yeah, no, I'm not into you, Granny. I'm not feeling it. And she's like, oh yeah, and like kind of has like Don Mattingly like sticking out of her shirt a little bit.
Well, in between her grandma titties. Maybe you want to get in and grab it. It's pristine. Yeah. I remember there was apparently like a picture of her making out with him. Like they didn't want me to see, as if I didn't understand. Like they said kissing. I don't know, but they like made sure at my age, like, no, you don't want to see this.
I hope it was X-rated. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Grandma.
Yeah, I just want them like deep neck, throat gagging, kissing while holding on to my baseball cards.
Yeah, your grandma naked with Wally Backman on her stomach. Like,
no, I kept Wally Backman. He was in the Phillies one. It's Don Mattingly that's on my grandma's naked body.
Yeah. So you never saw the picture of your grandma, and you've never seen a picture of the Jesus door. These are the deepest secrets in the Burlew.
And I no longer know what the Don Manley rookie card looks like. It's disappeared from my brain.
Now, what was your reaction to knowing that she had given your cards away to her boyfriend?
I'm not going to deny I didn't have the most loving relationship with my grandma on my mother's side. She basically moved into the house. She would be out every night. Like when she came back, she was kind of crabby. Like I remember like the living room TV had the, as you recall, the special cable boxes, the illegal ones where you got like the good channels.
Of course.
And she would like come in and be like, I want to watch the news. And it's like, well, I can only watch this show on this TV. That we don't have one downstairs. And she would be like threatening, I'm going to wake up your father and get you in trouble. And I want to watch the news. And she wasn't pleasant. She didn't play with us. She didn't like make food for us in any way. She was just kind of there as one of those. She had nowhere else to go, so my mom's like, move in with us. Like my sister had to bunk with her as my brother bunked with me. Six people in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house.
And grandma's out at night showing off the grandma titties and stealing baseball cards.
Just bopping some old 78-year-old penis. Like
did
put
you
it in my
ever get the
wallet
cards
man
back?
door.
Did you ever get the cards back?
No.
Like the binder at least?
No, nothing. Like literally, it was gone that summer. I said, what the hell? I was depressed. Heard who did it. Never saw him again. Never. It'd
be amazing if he went on to be like a multi-billionaire and it started with him hawking that Mattingly card and turned
it
into
was
an
a
investment.
rare, one-of-a-kind Don Mattingly before he shaved his sideburns to join the New York Yankees.
Wow. So we've learned a lot about the Burlew family today.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of stories out there, people, and they could be like a monthly routine here on the podcast. And let's do Burlew's May family story.
We still got April, dude. We got April now.
Oh, dang! I don't even know what month it is. Damn! Look at me.
Well, with that, I believe it is time for us to wrap this thing up here. First, I want to thank Bryan for coming on. Really fascinating interview. Definitely another avenue we have not touched. I don't think we've ever had a hacker on the show. Hopefully that wasn't his ploy to just get on the show and get all our information and kind of, steal our stuff.
Well, once he sees our bank accounts, he'll be like, okay, I'm fine.
He's gonna be like, screw it. I'm gonna take the Jesus door.
No,
Bryan, no. Burlew, anything to promote before we get out of here?
Yeah, Burlew's screen doors, straight from the Pope. Let's do Atlanta Tucky Brewery, one of my favorite breweries down here in Atlanta, Georgia, that is run by former guest, the Nappy Roots. They are very passionate about their beers. I have gone there at least 6 or 7 times. It's in the heart of Atlanta, right by Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So if you're tailgating for a Falcons game, Atlanta United, anything concert-wise and all, it's a great place to go. They got paninis and pizza that they serve there, along with some great beers. I have bumped into both members of the Nappy Roots there. They are a pleasure to talk to. They talk with everybody who goes in there that recognizes them. It's just an amazing, just a scene and everything they lay out there. You will not have a bad time going to Atlanta Tucky Brewing in Atlanta, Georgia.
And I will promote a comedy show coming up when this comes out. It'll be this Saturday, March 29th. It is out in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, at a place called the Cinder Inn. Me, Matt Jenkins, and I'm bringing my friend Monty Mason to come on out. So it is a good lineup. It is also now a benefit for the victims and families of a North Cortland fire, which I guess was a fire that happened over there. Show's nice and early, 7:00 if you want to stay for karaoke after. So it should be a good show. It is a good place, good beer, good food. The Cinder Inn in Stroudsburg. Come on out and say hi. Other than that, I would quickly promote once again the newsletter. I want to get more people. Just send us your email. You could sign right up if you look up Verbal Shenanigans on Substack. If you're unsure, Verbal Shenanigans Podcast at Gmail is our email. Send on over, say, hey, put me on that mailing list. Other than that, we've had a good week. Hopefully we have another good one here. Keep listening, keep subscribing, keep sharing, and that's it. Life is funny. Laugh at it. Keep the wind at your back.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, through this door.
Grandma titties.